Hello, everyone. Oh my goodness. Welcome to session 2 of the child custody series. Now, if you are just unfamiliar and you're like, session 2, I don't even know where session 1 is. It's somewhere on this channel. Just go ahead and put in child custody series underneath my whatever platform you're on, and you should be able to see it. But my name is Henry Bianca Gant, and I teach people how to live and how to work on purpose. And some years ago, I I went through what would be considered a very tumultuous child custody matter. And as a result, I just didn't realize, now looking back, because we are now in a place where we can retrospectively look back, I realized how much that experience took for me because I did not necessarily recognize what was happening for me. And I just kept focusing on what was happening to me. And I made it all about me. And it really wasn't. So I'm hoping that through my experience of my 10-year child custody turmoil, I would say, that I'm hoping that you will be able to glean from some lessons that I learned through that. And that's my whole purpose by doing this series. There are 6 sessions in this series. So I encourage you to please lean in, especially if you are currently in a child custody matter, if you believe that you are going to be, or even if you just got out of one. I would love to hear if you resonate with any of these things that are mentioned. Okay. So today's session is all about your motives, your expectations, and your emotions. Essentially, all the things that I wish people, lawyers, judges, all of the family would check people on before they go to court. Because what I have recognized is that the greatest battle is often not in the courtroom, it's really within yourself. So let's get to it. So before we begin, know that I am not an attorney. Know that I am not the parent of the year. I'm not the co-parent of the year, all of the things. I just went through something through 10 years, okay? And that's my lens, my story. And I've been able to encourage others through the process, okay? But before we begin, though, I want to just ask you a question, and feel free to put it in the chat or just make it self-reflective. Have you examined what is driving your decisions? You about to spend thousands of dollars getting an attorney. You about to spend countless of hours away from work. You about to spend even more hours being stressed out, preparing on what you're going to say and how mad you are. You're going to waste a whole lot of time and money. So, have you examined what is driving your decisions? I don't know what state you're in. Matter of fact, if you're watching, let me know what state you are in, because I know in the state of Maryland, is a lot of court filings, and baby, it is the worst thing when you think that you're going to court and then the person don't show up, and then you still got to get more information because this, that is a lot of time wasted. So before you go through all of that, I'm not saying that you don't go through with it. However, what's most important is that you examining what is driving your decisions. Okay. So again, what is it? I know as for me, I was so hurt, not because of us like not being together. Um, that was good. What I was hurt about was the way things were being done, and there were some lies being told, right? So man, that part was just like, man, I can't believe that we're going through this, right? And I'll talk about expectations in just a bit. But here's the thing. The first courtroom is not the courthouse, okay? First courtroom is your mind. When you're going through child custody, your mental health is so important. It's so important that you either surround yourself with people that are positive, not the people that's like, oh, well, what did they do? What did your, child's father do? What did your child's mother do? Start digging and being your anti-party. That's not what you need. You need your mind to be still so that you know that God is God. Amen. then you need to really, again, be looking at it's your conscience. Your conscience is also the courthouse. Your conscience, making sure that if you sleep at night, that the decisions that you make are things that you can live with. Okay, that's really the first judge. And then you want to look at your motives, which ties into your conscience, but definitely your motives. What's my motive? Is my motive for the child? Is my motive to hurt the person? Is my motive to be proven right? Is my motive to win, right? What is your exact motive? Okay. And then wisdom versus emotion. My goodness, I know firsthand how emotional child custody can be. It is very emotional. However, your first courtroom, you need to rely on wisdom. And I am always going to glean on the wisdom of God, because there is wisdom of man, there's wisdom from heaven, and there's wisdom on earth. I'm not necessarily saying that you should rely on wisdom from earth. I believe that everybody's situation is different. And I am a witness that there's a wisdom from heaven that will shatter every other man-held belief, even books and theories that you can read about what you should do, what you shouldn't do. I'm telling you, the wisdom of God is priceless. So again, you want to be mindful of those emotions, because again, unfortunately, right, we're living in a society where we have made decisions that bring another life into this world. Okay. And many of us know that we were supposed to be in that position anyway. But by God's grace, God blessed us with this baby, right? But most custody cases are won or lost emotionally long before anyone enters a room. And I don't really ever believe that you could win or lose a custody battle, right? We're talking about a child, okay? Yeah, like, how do you win? How do you win, right? Everybody loses at the end. Everybody loses something, right? But you don't really win in this matter. It's about what's best for the child. So when we talk about child custody, and again, we're talking about the motives and things of that nature, it's important for us to identify, are we moving in fear or are we moving in faith? Okay. Because fear says, what if I lose? And again, like, is your child, right? And what if they hurt my child? And again, I'm being very sensitive, because I know that there are some matters where there is true like concern about that child's safety. And I can't talk to all of those. Actually, I can talk to that a little bit, and I'll talk about that on the faith side. And what if the judge doesn't listen? Listen, baby, that's always that's always something that can happen, that the judge might listen the one time, and then you go the fifth time, the judge don't listen, right? So that's fear. What if I fail? Again, all of these negative things. And again, I'm not saying that these things are not reality, but the reality is that you can't control any of those. Faith says God is still in control. You do your best. You show up with the best intentions. You are going and praying, not praying against the person, but praying that your heart is right, praying that the best results, praying that the judge can hear, praying that the atmosphere is set, praying that the truth shall be setting everybody free, right? Also, faith says that I will make wise decisions. Faith says I can only control my actions. And also, it prevents you from being overly emotional. Not that you won't be sad, disappointed, things of that nature, but it'll help you control your actions. And even if the co-parent is at a disadvantage, faith should make you want to say, not to gloat and like, oh, ha, 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 I won, right? That's not right. My child's future is not determined by one court date. Now, again, I know there are certain circumstances where that feels like that. But if you listen to session 1, our foundations, listen, I don't care what court document. I have so many stories, y'all. I don't care what the court document said. God is the father of that child. Okay, God's hand is on that child, and your role is to continue to pray for that child regardless of the outcome, because Proverbs 3:5-6 says to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. You may not understand it, but ask God and he might reveal it to you. Fear causes people to overspend, okay, and financially draining your resources, driven by anxiety, especially if you're like, oh my gosh, I have to win. Oh my gosh, what if I lose? All of those things. And then you're like, oh, let me go get the best attorney. Let me go get this. Let me go this. Let me spend this. Let me overcompensate for this child. Let me buy things for this child to make them. All those things are not healthy. That's what fear causes you to do. It causes you to also overreact, especially when you're responding to things emotionally. Yes, they didn't bring the child back on time. Hello, somebody. No, they didn't bring the child back. However, like, what are the responses? What are the appropriate responses? You can fuss them out, or you can be wise and document, right? You can record, you can document, so that way you begin to have your things together, okay? But when you are overreacting, you ain't thinking, okay? Overreaction, and when you're responding inappropriately, it restricts your ability to be able to think of creative solutions. You don't think clearly, okay? Over communicating, saying just too much, bro. You just talking too much all the time, and that's what fear causes you to do. You feel like you got to over explain. You feel like you got to, oh, the reason why I did this is because none of that is necessary, okay? More than likely, you won't even make a difference. So save your words. Also, fear causes you to have impulsive decisions, acting quickly without strategic foresight. I don't even need to, y'all already, it's already coming to mind, isn't it? If it is, I want to hear about it in the comment section. What's something impulsive that you did during your child custody battle or matter? Okay. Impulsive decisions, especially when somebody finds out that they're with someone else. Oh my goodness. Now you can't see the child because I don't know who that person is. Mind you, again, I'm not here to diminish it. All of it is valid, but I'm just saying, check this out, right? Worst case focus, amplifying your fear and distorting your reality. There's something that I heard years ago where it says that, like, try your best to think the highest thought of people. And it is hard, baby, because sometimes you might be dealing with a demon himself, but we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, okay? But seriously, fear does cause you to think of the worst case scenario often, and that whole thinking in the highest thought really does bless me. And here, I'll give you a real example. When I started doing that, and unfortunately, it wasn't until towards the end, I began to see how the Lord saw the co-parent. And as I began to pray for the person sincerely, the Lord began to open up my heart to see the trauma, open up my heart to begin to see why they were fighting the way they were fighting, right? And it allowed me to have some empathy, and I stopped thinking the worst case focus, and I just walked into situations a little differently, right? Because I saw what God showed me, and my heart was more settled, I would say. So again, I'm not just talking to you, y'all. I'm telling you, I went all of these things I went through. So have you been operating out of from facts or from fear? That's self-reflective. Let me know. Okay. So this is another thing that affects us in child custody battles is control. But if you were around for the first session, we cannot control. There's so much that we can't control. What we really have to do is to steward, okay? Especially if you are a kingdom-minded parent, we have to pursue stewardship. So control says, I need things my way. And as soon as it is not my way, then all of the things happen, right? And that causes you to manipulate, that causes you to exert narcissistic behavior because you feel like you've lost control. And many people, what I have found is that they don't even know that they're being controlling. They don't know that they're being led by this. They just feel very passionate that that person shouldn't have done this. And then when you take a step back and it's like, so what's the harm if they did do that? What's the harm if they did see them on the weekends? What's the harm if they did see them, 1 week on, 1 week off? What is the harm really for the child? Or is it that you would be losing control? Okay. And when you are thinking about control, needing it your way, you're reacting from hurt and pain, and you're seeking outcomes over healing. That's a whole nother story for another day. Because again, we're going to get to the child in another session, because right now I'm dealing with you. I'm dealing with you, the parent, because it can definitely be it's just an emotional wreck. Hello, somebody. Stewardship, though, means that I manage what God entrusted to me. So focusing on the things that you can control only, focusing on your assignment, you focusing on being a good parent, you focusing on the things that are within your realm to be able to focus on. And that means that you're operating from a place of purpose and a place of peace. I'm telling you, this also was a game changer for me, because I experienced anxiety real bad when I was going through child custody battles, especially within the first 7 years. Oh my God, it was so bad. And now I just like, oh God, I thank you. Because there's a mindset shift that if you operate from a place of anxiety, anxiety is rooted in fear. It's rooted in control. But when you operate from peace that surpasses all understanding, even if the peace doesn't surpass all understanding, even if it's a little piece, baby, it is still strong enough to be a weapon. So operating from that place of peace, right, allows you just to steward, say, okay, this is what I got, and this is how I'm going to work it, versus like, let me try to control it. Let me try to control it. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. So going into that, what can you control? You can control your character. Hello, somebody. Listen, I am a witness. Baby, when I say that mattered, oh, baby, it mattered. There was a lot of things that I could do. There was a lot of things I could have done. And there was a lot of things I was advised to do against the person, against my co-parent. But I chose not to do it because I knew that it would be in misalignment from my character. It would not be in alignment. I knew that. And my pastor always says that your response is to God, not to man. Even if I felt like the outcome would be and not in my favor, I would not lie against a person. I would not, I refuse to manipulate. I refuse to stretch the truth. I just would stand 10 toes down, right? Because I knew from in my inner being, I knew that will go a longer way, right? When you can make sure that your hands are clean, I'm telling you, even if it looks like things are on the down and down, not the up and up. If things look like they're on the down and down, I guarantee you that the reward from your character remaining pure, from your hands be remaining clean, will have heavier weight at the end than it ever would in the temporary moment of trying to win a battle, but you losing out on the war. Your preparation you can control as well, because there have been people who have had great reasons as to why they should be the custodial parent, why that all of the things, but because they were not prepared, because they didn't have documentation and things of that nature, it simply just was not in their favor, right? Your communication you can control. One of the things that I've been advising especially some of my male friends that might be going through this is, don't do all the back and forth, right? And don't try your best not to make it verbal. Keep it through email. Yeah, keep it through email. I don't even like the whole text thing. Let the text be for emergencies, but keep it through email. If it's during the week and it's not about the child, or if it's not an urgent matter or, important, keep it through email. That way, that's saved. That was amazing on our behalf. You can control your parenting, but again, do not overcompensate because of this, because that's a real thing as well. You can control your healing, seeking out therapy, those that are really in your corner, not just to see you win or not to see the other person fail, right? Documentation, which ties into your preparation and your attitude. You can control that. So even if the person, my goodness, calls you every name, names that nobody has ever called you. Hello, somebody. My God. I had a whole list. Matter of fact, it's part of my healing process. And there was an exercise that I did that the Holy Spirit led me to do. And I took a journal and I wrote down all of the things that person said to me, all of the negative things. And I began to speak over, and I was like, thank you. Because for some reason I started believing it. I was like, man, am I this bad of a person? This, that, and the other. And then again, the Lord just started showing me their heart and things of that nature. But I just looked at all of the things and I was like, I ain't none of this. Okay. Sometimes hurt people, and they want to do that through their words. And if you grew up like I grew up, baby, them fighting words, and I'm ready to fight. But honestly, it's just not worth it. So you can control your attitude. You cannot control the other parent's behavior. You cannot control what they do with their time on their weekends. You can't control what they do with your child when they're away. You can't control it. Get over it. You can't control it. You can't control their decisions. You can't control that they're taking them to the X, Y, and Z. You can't control it. You can't control their emotions. You can't control that they upset that you done moved on. You can't control it. And maybe that's you, right? They can't control you either. You can't control the judge's ruling. You can always go back and appeal and things of that nature, but you can't control that. You can't control the timing of the process. Maybe you might think that it's going to take you X amount of weeks to get through this, but depending on where you are, and unfortunately, we are making really bad decisions, from a sexual standpoint, which is causing so many people to end up being in child custody matters, right? That part was our control, and we messed that up. For many of us, we messed that up. We did. So many times we cannot control the timing of the process. But bottom line is that I want you to focus your energy on what you can control and release what you cannot. Because here's a hard truth. Some custody actions are about the children, but some are really about the pain. Can we just be honest here? Like, I've seen some of these things too, right? Am I trying to protect my child? Or am I trying to punish the other parent? Am I seeking revenge? Revenge is mine, says the Lord, right? Am I seeking justice? Am I moving from a place of child trauma? Am I just jealous because the person now has another partner? Am I trying to go after child support because I just want them to feel my pain? I want them to feel, because a lot of people like, oh, we make this baby together and they just got a promotion. Does that really mean that you're entitled to that person's income? Really though? Does it really? Again, I'm not here to argue. I'm just asking questions. Okay. Does it mean that you're entitled because they received a promotion? Right. Anyway, are you seeking revenge? Is this really for the child's best interest? And when we go through another session about the court stuff that I have learned, again, I'm not an attorney, but it's all about what is in the child's best interest. So you might as well start thinking about that now, right? Is it in your child's or children's best interest for them not to see the co-parent? So should that really be where you're trying to lean towards? Don't make sense, right? Because when you're making decisions while you are hurt, your perception is off, your judgment is off, your communication is off, your expectations are off. Everything, your lenses are skewed, right? You looking through here and you like, you're looking and like, oh no, they did that because XYZ is like, no, they did that because they really were running late from their job. Yes, they were seeing somebody else. They had a date and they really wanted, yes, right. But it's all your lenses are all screwed up. Not every disagreement is abuse. Sometimes people think about it like, oh, because they said no, they won't pick up my child early. Was that part of the plan? Was that part of the plan? And that doesn't mean that they're out to get you because they said no. No is a complete sentence, and they don't have to bend towards you. Not every mistake is manipulation, and not every delay is intentional. We got to really check our hearts, y'all. I'm telling you. Here's some common triggers. You all let me know if you all felt any of these triggers while you were dealing or are dealing with in your child custody matters. Feeling rejected. Many times that deals with your childhood trauma. And now that you have a child, you're projecting that same trauma on the child. But here, I ain't no mental health therapist, y'all. Let me stop while I'm ahead. Feeling replaced. Okay. Feeling ignored, feeling betrayed. Oh my gosh, that was definitely my big trigger right there, because loyalty is my love language, and I'm like, oh baby, I thought we said it was gonna co-parent in this way. Why are you taking me to court? Why you anyway, all the things, feeling misunderstood, feeling powerless. Oh my goodness. Especially if you're going through child custody matters and your child is young. We went through hours when our child was an infant, started when our child was an infant. So you could just imagine, oh my goodness, feeling powerless. Like, what is happening to my baby? My baby can't talk. And there were things that happened, during a particular time when my child could not talk. Things are much better when they can talk, right? But my goodness. So look at this reflection question here. What emotions surface most when I think about this custody situation? What emotions come up for you? Try to deal with that, okay? Because unspoken expectations does create disappointment. Now, let me also be real. Some of you are working with are co-parenting with people that just don't want to hear you and they're not trying to come to a middle ground. Okay. And you can't really create expectations with them one-on-one. Sometimes you got to go through the court to have the expectations written out. I understand. Okay, I understand. But let me just say though, your expectations create disappointment because you can't control them. I grew up in a blended family. I had 4 parents my entire childhood life. Okay. And I just, in my mind, because they did it so well, I just thought that that's how we were going to do it. First of all, I was disappointed that I had a child out of wedlock. I was disappointed that I would now have a child that would be split up in the home. But in my mind, I still felt, isn't this weird? I still felt that it would be okay because I grew up in a blended family. I was like, well, they did it really well. You know what I'm saying? So it'll work out. That wasn't my co-parent's expectation. Right. So what are your expectations that you have in your heart because of your childhood, because of the picture that you painted, because of your narrative that is creating disappointment for you? Because the bottom line is that not everyone will meet your expectations. Especially if you have core values that the other person does not have, right? Expecting people to keep the word, expecting them to be reasonable. It's like, well, I did this for you. I, took the child for those 3 weekends that you weren't available. And now I'm asking you to return the favor and you're not. What I have been advising people is never do something to expect the same thing back. Just don't. If you are only doing it to expect something back, like a future favor, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it at all. Just don't do it. I'm telling you, do it because you want to do it and because you can do it, because that's part of your call, your character, all of the things. But don't do it because you think that person is going to be able to give it back to you. Oh, well, let me go ahead and lend them $20. Don't do it. Don't do it. So how do you protect your peace in all of this? Philippians 4, 6-7 was my anchor scripture. Matter of fact, it's right here on my desk right now. And it says to be anxious for nothing, y'all, nothing. Don't let anxiety creep in and take over your life. It is affecting you too much. You can't even get into another healthy relationship because you just full of anxiety. But in everything by prayer and supplication, here it is, with thanksgiving. Oh my gosh, baby, that thing changed my life. I began to thank God for my co-parent. I began to thank God for the things that I was experiencing, even though it hurt, because I began to change my focus for why is this happening to me? And I began to change my focus to why is this happening for me? The scripture then says, let your requests be made known to God. Instead of complaining about a matter, make it a request. Change it into a prayer point. Change it into a prayer point. I'm telling you, it changes everything. Before you respond, pray about it. Not just like, oh, God, help me not to hurt this sucker. No, I'm talking about, Father, how should I respond? Should I respond at all? Because if you're anything like me, baby, I'm telling you, there are some trigger words. If I see it, I'm responding on my own flesh. You understand? But that's not why. That's not wisdom. So you got to pray before you respond. Even sometimes if it happens real live in the moment, whoo, you got to calm down. Father, how do you want? Holy Spirit, I need you to guide me in this moment. Wait before sending messages, seeking wise counsel. Listen, I don't know if y'all got good best friends and all this stuff. I got some good best friends. I got some good friends, some good friends. But again, sometimes they would take my side, which I loved. right? But I didn't necessarily need somebody taking my side. I need somebody giving me wisdom, right? Because sometimes some of the things that happen to me was like, oh no, you better go and while it might have made logical sense, I knew that it wasn't wisdom. Focus on the facts, not your emotions. Protect your emotional energy, y'all. And again, that's why I'm a big fan of the email. I'm a big fan of email. In fact, I blocked text messages. Like, I would unblock it during the times that my child was with my co-parent, and I will block it again throughout the week. If my child was me, I don't need no text messages. I'm just saying I had to protect by all means protect my emotional energy, and then documenting instead of arguing. You got to go back and forth, y'all. Just document it. Document it. What you doing all of that for? So, as I wrap up, all of this is happening for you, not to you. This child coming into your life, or your children coming into your life, is grace. It's grace. Go back and listen to session 1, because sometimes we end up making ourselves like the victim, but really the child is, right? This child that we have is grace. Like, it could have been something else, but the Lord gave us another human being to steward that will produce greatness on this earth. My God, right? So begin asking yourself, who am I becoming through this process? Why is this happening for me? What do I need to learn from this? If you ever want to know who you really are, a relationship will bring that out of you. Yes, it will. And I believe that child custody will bring out all of the things, okay? But what's your character like? What's your character becoming through this process? How's your self-control through this process? What's your integrity like? Privately, what are you doing privately? Are you ashamed of it publicly? What's it like through this process? How's your patience through this process? What's your emotional maturity? Would your child be proud of how you're responding 5 years from now? Would your future spouse be proud of how you're responding? Would they be attracted to you based on how you are treating the other person, right? These are just things to think about. Why am I afraid? What am I afraid of? What am I trying to control? Where am I operating from hurt? What expectations do I need to release? And what would faith require me to do next? Feel free to pause this video if you want to reflect on any of these questions. I really encourage you to write down the responses to these questions so you can really get on the other side. So hopefully, if you have, hopefully you don't have another child custody hearing, but if you do, if you have to go to court again, you never know. I want you, or if you have to engage with your co-parent, I want you to begin just looking at these questions on an ongoing basis. So that way you can really move from a place of peace and not from hurt. I hope that this has blessed you all, because again, the greatest battle is not in the courtroom, but it is within yourself. So before I go into all of some little key tips or whatever that I see in the courtroom, I wanted to make sure that we really focus on ourselves, because those are the things that we can control, right? We can control that and that alone. So I hope that this has been a blessing to you. I want you to comment below and let me know which area challenged you the most. Is it the unrealistic expectations? Is it the hurt, your emotions? Is it the fact that you just want to get revenge? Be honest, right? Is it the control? Is it fear? I want to know all about it. Let's learn, let's grow together. And again, my name is Heather Bianca Gant, and I teach people how to live and work on purpose. I hope that this child custody series has blessed you. If it has, let me know. Why don't you like? Why don't you subscribe to the channel? But also feel free to share this with someone else that might be experiencing child custody battles, and hopefully this will be able to help them as well. All right, until next time, don't forget to command your day. Comment below, let me know what your thoughts are.